Hi, this is Kim with www.embody-light.com. And I just wanted to make a video today about this. Has been a question actually on my mind, and other people have asked me. And I was kind of confused in it in the beginning because I had a lot of stuff happening, especially in dream times and in sessions where we find souls that are earthbound and have not crossed over, and we help them to cross over. And so, but I'd always wondered exactly what is going on with those beings because some of the people that I would cross over, well, like here's one example, and this was years ago. I had in a dream state, I'm dreaming, all of a sudden there's two children standing outside of my door with their father, and they're actually in the dream. This is very strange. They're like laying in my front yard on a mattress, and it was a dirty mattress. And so I go to them, determine what was going on, and they had all died. It was something to do with the father had taken the children from the mother, and they all died. And I asked, well, what am I supposed to do this? Do they go to the same place? I mean, you wouldn't think the children would go to the same place as the father. And how would I do this differently? And so what I was told was, no, you just cross them over. And so I'm going to talk about the different dimensions and densities in a minute, but you just cross them over into what we call heaven, which is actually the seventh dimension. And so what that is it's actually like a stopping station. And this is where you'll hear that others connect with loved ones that have crossed, ancestors, that kind of thing. So you meet at this station, have your celebration or whatever, and I believe the life review takes place here. But then from there, you go to wherever you're going to go. So if you're a 10th density being, and say you have lifetimes or have had lifetimes, and that's where your home is on, if you're Arcturian, you would go there. And a lot of people, if they've done their spiritual work and they've already ascended, they go back to their ascended state. So, say somebody who was a highly evolved being here that transitioned, they would go right to their ascended master state if they are an ascended master. So, but then we hear a lot of stories, and this is what always confused me. And I've done mediumship work before in the past, and sometimes you'll ask the being on the other side that you're connecting with for the relative. I got to explain that too. For the relative, what are they doing? And they might say, oh, I'm fishing, I'm doing this. And I'm always going, what? You have fishing up there? And it's not really up there, it's a different, higher density. It's about 3 feet above us, but it's a higher density than what we can see with our normal human 3D perception. So for beings that are Terrans, there's a difference. Those are people that are basically Earth people. That that is where they go in between their lifetimes. So they go to heaven where they have whatever existence they want to create until their next opportunity to be born. And when someone comes into Earth to be born, it's not just like that. It's choosing the right circumstances, it's down to the timing of your birth and all of those things, because that all comes into play, and what you're going to accomplish. And your parents are going to be supportive to that, either in a way of showing you what you don't want or what you do want. So that's that heaven that we all hear of, that I mistakenly thought that everyone went to and lived forever, and that's not quite how it is. The heaven that we hear of is for the Terrans when they reincarnate. So, but what used to happen is we had a false trapping system, and I've talked about this before, where beings were tricked into thinking they were going into the light, but they were really going into was a trapping prison kind of system and being sent right back to Earth. That's why we'd have people reincarnating back together like that were enemies time and time again. They were told without any rehabilitation, they were told from this other side they were coming to Earth, and they would just carry out the same things again. And all of these things are in the Akashic records in the planet. And so once you get on the planet, you start remembering them. Sort of. You're not really, when you come into life, into a third dimensional life, you're not supposed to hold past life memories and all the things you were before and your life purpose and all that. But especially the kids being born now, they are. And some kids from the past had unusual genetics and were able to do that as well. So I just want to talk about the different dimensions and densities. So a dimension is a physical location. So we are on the third dimension, but our density is more or less our frequencies, I guess is the way you could say it. So you can be living on the third dimension, but you can hear into the fifth dimension or the fifth density. If you're embodied here and you're holding a fifth density consciousness, then you can hear into the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and up dimensions. The other way that we can connect with people is if we have been actually, if they're our ancestors, we always have a link. So I'm going to start by talking about the first density. What it is that's our inner earth. That's the magma, everything in the inner earth. Our first density as humans is our physical expression, our physical body. And if you haven't watched my other videos, go back and find out the things we do to because we either were in synchronization with love source or we're working against it. So go back and watch my other videos to see where you are and to see what you can do if you need to change that density dimension. So then the next one, the second one, this is where um, our like fair elementals. I couldn't think of the word. Are fairies, gnomes, and they do exist. They're at a level we can't perceive with the human eye usually. Some people do see them. One of my children, when she was small, actually used to see them. But you might see, especially if you're out in nature, if you just kind of relax your focus and just kind of, maybe you could look at a tree or a plant or something, you might see little bits of energy coming off this plant or this tree. A lot of those are actually fairies, those kinds of things. So they're they work with the elements of the earth, and they're here basically to protect the earth. So that's your second density. And then in human bodies, that's where our emotional body is. And this is magnetic. It's our sexual body, emotional body. Um, in this area, if humans are healed, they don't unhealed, I should say this different. Unhealed humans will project their wounds and their issues at other people. A healed human does not do that. Um, so someone who's not functioning in a way that's conducive to energetic flow at this area, um, because if you do start projecting your emotions at people and you're at this above this area, you actually demote yourself. But they project their wounds, they play victim, stealing or underpricing someone's value. um they'll try to, oh, this would be somebody who maybe tries to steal a relationship from someone. They can be manipulative to get their own way. um they're The way they handle their relationships is inappropriate. It's about what they can get from somebody, um, not doing things that are the highest good of all. So when this level, and your first level, when your first level is blocked, it affects your ability to make a connection with source because your chakras work together to the number 8. So And then at your second level, that can block your third eye. So a negative emotion, because this is your third eye is your celestial emotional body. So if you in your physical body block that, you're not going to be able to get the information that would normally come through your third eye. So that's your second density. Third density is in a human being, and we all know what the third dimension is. It's our physical world, but in a human being, this is our personal power center. And in humans, they want their ego, who they think they are, or who they're protecting them, how they're protecting themselves. They want that part of their beingness to be in control. But the reality is this should be like a last considered back voice almost, where you connect to source and get your information from source and let your spirit guide you, not your ego. And so the things of ego are, on third density are all things we know about. And if you give your power away, you demote yourself. If you disempower others, you demote yourself spiritually. So you have to be careful and watch your intentions and what you're doing. Always reflect back to self when something's going on. How am I involved? What is my part here? How could I have done things differently? Where did I do things correctly? You have to really do that self evaluation. Then we go to the fourth density in human body. That is our gateway. The heart, to the degree that your heart is open or shut, is the way you're going to let these other densities come into your reality. And so I've talked about that at length, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but it's in my other videos. Now, our fifth density is actually kind of more of a masculine part of our beingness. And I don't know why that is, but the odd numbers, well, I guess it's because the even numbers are more fluid and they move the energy, and the odd numbers are like the power of the source. So our fifth density and within ourselves and dimensionally, when we're existing in fifth density, um, it's a lot more like the Garden of Eden. Um, it's a lot more conducive energy flow. And this is where we bring our blueprint or our matrix. It's through this chakra. And this connects, because it's the fifth, it connects with our personal power center. Through this chakra, if they're working together, we're bringing in power into our physical being, and that's power from source through our blueprints. So you either work with your blueprint or against your blueprint. Some of the things we can do that shut down are things we would do with our voice. If you're you should one thing that's I found really beneficial is in your morning intentions or prayers or whatever you do, set the intention that your all of your communications be divinely guided, and really evaluate if that's happening and what are the reasons it's not happening. Is it because you're being triggered or whatever? And then work on those reasons you're being triggered, because you really can shut yourself down at this area. So we use our voice to bring creation into manifestation. And if we're doing it appropriately, we get an enhanced or keep our energy flow. But when we start gossiping and that kind of thing, putting ourselves or others down, we get demoted. If we speak in uplifting, compassionate ways, we actually promote our energy flow, is the best way you could say that. So then our fifth density, that is our visionary abilities and our perceptions. And it's more than just seeing visions, it's being able to perceptualize things. That's the front aspect. But the back aspect is, are you able to put those things in motion? Now, I was shown, I just want to touch base briefly here. I was shown maybe 2 years ago where consciousness fell, and they showed me this tapestry. It was a beautiful bright colored tapestry of the earth and all of its plants, just beautiful. And they showed me it ripped apart. That was during the fall of consciousness, because prior to that it was heaven on earth. And then after this fall we went into third density conscious, third density and dimension. So what they showed me 2 years ago, that it was ripped apart, but it started coming back together. And then just recently, in the last couple months, heard in fifth density that this is a lot closer and it's actually happening. So we're going to have to, if you've been procrastinating, you're going to have to really start doing your spiritual work and align your energies appropriately so that you're not manifesting things that you do not want. So then we go to seventh density, and that's what I spoke of. That's where heaven is. And I'm gonna talk about Christ and Christ consciousness. He actually exists like in a ninth density, and other beings that are Christ. It exists in a ninth density. But we as humans can communicate with that energy through the seventh density. So, what I mean there is through your crown chakra, that's where you make those connections. So, as long as your crown is open and everything is in alignment, that's when you can hear from ascended masters. And I will speak more on specific groups and ascended masters that I work with and have worked with in another video. That's just too extensive to do in this one. So then we go into, and I have to find my other paper here. Then we go into 10th density. That would be more cosmic beings. 11th density is angels. And I did not know this until recently, but actually angels can incarnate on earth. They are the 144,000 that you've heard of. And these beings are actually immortal. They, um, if, and there are 144,000 of them here now. They are, when they come into a physical life on a third density planet, for whatever reason they're coming, their physical life does end on this planet, but they don't have to go through the dying process and starting over as another individual would. And the other thing about these individuals is they really don't have a need to incarnate for the most part. They're doing it, well, in this time in particular, for planetary ascension. So they don't have to keep coming back and repeating cycles. They may want to, but my understanding is they don't have to. Then the 12th density is archangels. The one I am most familiar with is Archangel Michael. Archangels are a little bit different. My understanding is, to communicate with an archangel, you have to be one of the 144,000. Maybe some get messages or little snippets, but my understanding is 144,000 can communicate with these archangels. And they are different communicating with them, where, how would I say this? As if our reality was normal. They're far removed from our reality and don't necessarily understand the human, this is how I would describe it, the human condition or what the human is going through. So whenever I've had to have any kind of communication with them, I'm always I might get some short answer like, "Oh, be well, child, and rest," something like that, where I might have to say, "No, here on earth, as we're living in these human bodies, this is how it is for us, and we don't understand this middle part." And then I'll be explaining the middle part. The other thing in this 12th density, I don't know if all councils exist here, but I have had times where I've gone to a council and I didn't realize at the time, but I understand now it's a council of angels, and asked for them to intervene in my chart or somebody else's chart. When I did that, and this was for another individual, I was quite surprised by what I came to understand. To me, from my human perspective, it almost looked like a lack of understanding or compassion, but actually it wasn't. It was because these angels had, first of all, they weren't emotionally connected to this person, so it wasn't the same. And these angels have the ability to see all of the lifetimes and everything that's happened, to know what steps need to be taken for this person to ascend. And they, as surprised as I was, they basically said that in certain situations, people have caused so much damage that it's going to take a long time to unwind all of the damage, and that it might, basically, I can't go into details, but that it might not happen in this lifetime, is basically what I was told. Um, it is more detailed than that. I'm just trying to give you a short story without giving details. So I was a little surprised that they were so just matter of fact. That's, I guess, the term. And then our 13th density is source, true prime creator. That would be 13th density, or 13th dimension would be the location. So now all of us here on the planet, we do have, oh, except for maybe those that are not of source, the ones we would call the ones from cable TV that we've talked about before, because I don't think they have the same source. We all have the ability to connect with source, and that's something we really need to, if you haven't figured out how to do this, most important is that is where we would start making those connections. So one of the things I did, and I never knew this because I actually tried to cut off from source. Just a second, I gotta pause. So one of the things, and as I said, I tried to cut off from source, but that's not even possible because I had so much confusion with the abuse that was being handed to me from my father. And his children were taught that God is a father. And um, so I made the connection in air as a 12-month-old child that source or God was like my father on earth, and I wanted nothing to do with that. And then my parents told me all kinds of stuff that wasn't true, that, well, they believed it, they didn't know it was true about source. So to me, and I know this sounds terrible, but this is how children form their beliefs. Source was a psychopath. And then I was raised Catholic, so we were always taught to pray to Mother Mary, pray to Yeshua as well. So I made my connection there because I figured they were a lot safer. And as a matter of fact, I would pray and pray and pray for Mary because I figured she was a mother to intervene and talk to Source on behalf of my children. I was so ridiculous and so afraid of it. But it's like the greatest, most intense love you're ever going to know. But when I first started after I disconnected, gone through a whole bunch of stuff, and then started reconnecting, this was several years ago. First thing that happened, I was meditating, and all of a sudden it looked like the sun. I just, with my eyes closed, it was very bright, and I could see a spark of light in my being, like in the center of my being. And it was actually, I was in a car waiting, my husband was in the store. And so I saw this and I asked, is this source? I probably said God because I that was the word I used back then. Now I use source. And that light started expanding and growing larger and getting brighter. Well, I wish I would have understood at the time because I still wasn't, I trusted a little more, but I still had all these illusionary beliefs from my childhood within me. So I didn't make too much of a connection, but I thought that was really kind of cool. I thought it was fun to know that I actually could connect and there was nothing scary about it. But then I went on and I just did channeling, not knowing who I was talking about. So, or who I was speaking to. So as time went on, I've come to realize that the energy that's source is and everybody's going to have to determine this for themselves because I can read the energy how my physical body responds. When I ask a question of source, my energy pulsates and vibrates if it's affirmative or true. If I ask a question that's not true, then nothing happens. So I'm able to understand it with the way my energy feels. It's just a buzzing kind of feeling. So if you can start doing that to determine how you're connecting and how to recognize that. And the way I would do it or have done it when I practiced is I will ask questions that I already know the answers to. Like the first thing I you could ask, because this is always true, am I loved by source? And I get it immediately. I start feeling that pulsating energy, and actually, because I'm clairaudient, I hear it. I hear it sounds like wind in my ears. When I'm doing a healing and it's very intense energy, it sounds like a tornado coming in my ears. So that's how I know. But then I could ask the question, the opposite. How would I phrase that? I could say, I've had such a challenging life. I just don't think you really like me. Is that true? Is there something about me that you just don't like? I get nothing. So apparently Source does kind of like me. And you too. Everybody. He loves us all. He, she, my childhood uh, indoctrination, I would call it, has me calling Source he, so just out of habit. But source is masculine and feminine energy. So both mother, father, God together. That's how I would ask. But now, if any of us can do this once you learn how, part of the problem is because people are so busy, they never stop to take time to listen. But we can all connect with our guides, our family, our ancestors. Everybody can do that when they know how. Now, there are some people who um, one of the one of the groups that I connect with, and other people do too, is Yeshua, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Archangel Michael. They are a part of my team, and I didn't know this till a few months ago that I was on the earth when Christ walked the earth, and I actually um, uh, I was young, but I was a follower of his. I almost called him her, his. And I just asked for sure again because I had gotten the same information for now. I was there when they crucified him and he died. It was very horrific and tragic. And that's been the underlying, even though I had all of these other things happen in my life that were PTSD related, as I recalled all of those, the reason that I had such a hard time coming to terms with and getting over those things was because of this underlying thing that I witnessed over 2,000 years ago. So the people who were there, and I heard on another channel that there's like 170 of them now that were actually there with him. They have something like a fractal in their heart of Christ that you can actually tune into his energies and connect with those energies. So a lot of people, well, not a lot, but a fair number of people do have that. I know it's at least 170. I'm thinking it's probably more than that. But the interesting thing is now when I do healings with people, I that's the main guides that I connect with and call in, just because I was doing it in the beginning because it was more or less I felt a lot safer doing it that way, because for one thing, to do that the vibration has to be is high and you don't get like interference with entity. You have to protect your devices and all that. I'll do another video about that. But I always thought I wouldn't have any interference from outside energies or influences. And this was the purest, most connected way that I knew how to do it when I'm doing a healing. And as my third eye opens more and more and I get more visions, what I see now when I do a healing with other people, if they were not, because I do end up running into a lot of people who are also there. I It's just a magnetic connection, I guess. But people who were not there, maybe in a different part of the world or not alive at that time frame, it's very cool. I see a rosebud being placed in their heart, like in their physical heart. And so, what that means, the reason it's a bud is because over time, that rose is going to open and um, expand. And that as that happens, those individuals, we all have the ability to connect with Christ, but those individuals have an enhanced ability to connect when they get that rose. It's very unique. And so the most important takeaway from this video is find the way that you connect and feel with source. It can be a loving feeling, a warm feeling, a positive feeling. There for most people, I can't say for most people, a lot of people are so disconnected from their bodies that they don't even notice when something unusual is going on. So they might have that buzzing feeling when they're actually getting insight or connecting with source, but they're not recognizing it because they're so disconnected from their body, or they're so distracted with this, that, and the other thing, they're just not paying attention. So find out what it is, how you connect with source, and keep building that connection. You can telepathically connect with source because you're always a part of source and you can have communication telepathically. But other beings, you have to speak it out loud because they do not have permission to read your mind. So if I wanted to ask a question of Mother Mary or Yeshua, I would speak it out loud, and then the response I get may be telepathic, or I may be led to it through another person or through a book that I read. But that's how that would happen. So make your connection and start practicing, and you'll see how you can have that firm connection and that firm way that you communicate. Once you have that, you can start asking questions and getting quite a bit of information and insight. Um, it's, but you have to ask because your guides and source doesn't necessarily interfere unless you ask. So, with that being said, I will come back and make more videos about the specific collectives that I'm able to connect with. Some of them are really quite interesting, and I'll probably do one at a time. But my website is www.embody-light.com. And please subscribe if you're not subscribed here on YouTube, and hit the like button. I do have sessions available. I've got more time coming up here in the summer. And my goal is to help you to heal so that you can make your own connections with Source. Because here's the other thing I didn't mention: if you haven't done your shadow work, it's not that you can't connect, it's just that there's a whole bunch of noise and it's difficult to recognize that connection. So do your shadow work and start practicing connecting directly to Source. And once you do that, you really, your frequency starts increasing and things are just more much synchronistic. You're able to get information. I mean, you can even ask things like, is it safe for me to go into this situation? And you're either going to get a yes or a no. So, that being said, I love you all. I'll be back with more videos in the next week or two. I've just got a lot of summer fun stuff I'm doing right now. And I love you all and have a blessed day. Bye bye.